The triple moon goddess known as Hecate is not necessarily a goddess that is well known in Hellenism in the modern day, but in the old Hellenistic faith she had a role to play, although albeit minor in a sense. She had a very minor role when it came to the tale of Demeter and Persephone, where she played the minor role of being one of the people to detail what happened to Persephone and where she was taken to Demeter. In another role, however, she plays a much more major part, and that would be in the aftermath of the war between the Titans and the Olympians, where Zeus laid out the proposition for all of the gods and goddesses that exist in this new era of the Olympians. And thus he made his proclamation of what, and soon enough he came to the goddess Hekate, and laid out his proclamation of what it is that she will have. Zeus laid out the details of the fact that she will be able to continue her duties both in the mortal and in the underworld realms. That she would continue her phases in the moon, that she would continue as the goddess of the moon, as well as her role as being the goddess of magic and witchcraft, to which in response Hecate was silent, simply just waiting to see if there was anything else he wished to say. Because he had nothing else to say, Zeus simply just stopped and then left her cave. The reason she remained silent was, one, because her duties were to remain the same, so why would she have any complaints or anything to say, because everything was going to continue as normal. The second reason was because it didn't matter what proposition or proclamation Zeus was going to make, because Hecate was going to make it the way that she desired. That she would continue her roles and her duties the way she sees fit. Because, in reality, Hecate is not necessarily somebody who is beneath the king of the gods, rather it be the other way around, that Hecate is the one that holds the power within the discussion, and they both know it. It didn't matter what it was that Zeus was going to proclaim. It was going to work in Hecate's favor. Thus, it would probably leave you the question, if Hecate is so powerful, why is she not the one that rules the realms of gods, mortals, and the underworld? The reason for that is because she has no desire to do so. She does not care for the politics of gods, titans, or anything of that sort. She only cares about maintaining her duties in the underworld and in the mortal realm as she sees fit, and that is all. And while I have painted a rather terrifying picture of a powerful goddess that prefers to rule within the shadows and, in a way, be a puppet master over all of the beings, in reality she is more than just a terrifyingly powerful goddess that has the capabilities of even overturning the king of the gods himself if she so wishes. The reality is that she actually holds more of a nurturing and caring side as well. And this can be seen in the three different forms that Hecate holds. So let us talk about those for a moment. Her normal figure is seen as either being one goddess that holds a torch with a hound at her side. The other form she can be seen as three women, each holding torches and having hounds at their side, with the moon over each being's head. This is her triple form, each representing a single aspect of her that she has. The first aspect of hers is the maiden form, which is represented by the waxing moon. In this form, she represents new life, youth. She represents power and the ability to be able to hold new, raw energy. In this aspect, she represents the coming of new things and the good that it can bring. The second aspect of hers is the mother aspect. In this form, she is more controlled, but also more nurturing and more caring. In this, she is a guide, she is more of a teacher, and in this way she is both firm, but also more caring for those of her devotees and those that follow her whim. The final aspect of hers is the crone form, which is shown by the waxing moon. In this... The triple moon goddess Hecate, while she may hold a minor role when it comes to Hellenistic faith and the Hellenistic pantheon, and may not necessarily be a part of common knowledge nowadays, She is always an important figure when it comes to witchcraft and magic, especially to her devotees, such as I. Hecate is a goddess that has played a couple of roles, one of them playing a minor role within the tale of Demeter and Persephone, where she is one of the gods that tells Demeter about Persephone's whereabouts and where Hades had taken her in the underworld. In this aspect, we kind of have an idea of her being an underworld goddess, stating the fact that she in fact knows about the underworld and also knows about the god Hades. There is another role that she plays, however, one where she is a much more major character and figure, and that is when the god Zeus is making his proclamations to all of the neutral gods that did not play a role within the war between the Olympians and the Titans. He had to make negotiations and proclamations to each and every single god and goddess that was to be affected by this new era of the rule of the Olympian gods. The final figure that he had to make his proclamation to was the goddess Hekate. And when he arrived in her cave, he laid out this proclamation: that she would maintain her duties over the moon, that she would maintain her place both in the mortal and underworld realms, and that, of course, nothing of her duties would necessarily change. She would maintain her aspects and her duties as she saw fit. The goddess Hekate remained silent throughout this entire exchange, and with that, Zeus saw nothing else that he could necessarily say and simply just left. There were a couple reasons as to why she remained silent throughout the entire exchange. The first being nothing would change of her duties or anything that she was responsible for, so what would she have to complain about? The second would, however, be that there was no reason for her to, really, the second reason was just that it didn't matter what Zeus had proclaimed or what it was that Zeus was negotiating. The fact of the matter was that the one who held power was not the king of the gods in this exchange. It was really Hecate, for the real power was held by her. It did not matter what Zeus had proclaimed, because as long as Hecate would maintain her responsibilities and her aspects, of course, Hecate would be content. She did not desire anything other than that. But even though she held more power than even the king of the gods himself, it was not power that she strived for. She already knew she was more powerful than he, as a primordial goddess. But, at the same time, she did not desire power over Olympus or of the realms, even though she did have the capabilities. Rather, she simply just wished to maintain her own powers and her own responsibilities within the confinements that she felt were necessary. So, rather, she was more of a figure that worked within the shadows and ruled within the shadows, rather than being somebody who would rule directly, much like a puppet master. However, despite this, this is not all that she is. A terrifying goddess she most certainly does hold she most certainly is very much a terrifying and powerful goddess. But that is not all that she is, and by looking into the aspects that she holds, we can see further into that. Now, what I mean by the aspects is that she can be represented as one of two things. One, she could be represented as a single individual holding a torch with a hound at her side and a crescent crown. The other way that she could be represented is with all three of her aspects as a triple moon goddess: the maiden, mother, and the crone. Each with torches, a hound at their side, and of course the three moon phases that she is represented with. The maiden is represented with the waxing phase of the moon. This aspect of hers is meant to represent new energy, new beginnings, and new life. In this form, she is meant to represent youth. She is meant to represent new beginnings and their comings and what good they can bring. It is in this essence where energy can be found and where excitement can be, but it is important to remember that this is raw energy, and that it must first be honed in order to have its proper manifestation. The second aspect of hers is represented as the mother form, which is represented by the full moon. This is where the energy is more concentrated. It is more carefully honed, And in this aspect, you see her more motherly aspect. You see, as titled as before, where she is both nurturing but also one that can be firm when needed. So it is important to understand that health is part of her concern, whether she has to be nurturing and caring, or she must be firm in the way that you must be guided. The final aspect of hers is one that may be seen as the most terrifying aspect of hers. This would be the crone form, and as the crone she is represented by the waning crescent. And in this aspect she is represented as being more mysterious, more cunning, more wise, but also more confusing. She may speak in riddles, and she may be one that challenges your intellect and your capabilities in magic. So it is in this aspect where you must think a little bit more when you speak with her. For she may be confusing to speak with at first, but of course this is on purpose because she wishes to test your capabilities. She wants to be able to help you in understanding, but it has to be done with as most challenge as is capable. Because how can you learn without being challenged, of course? You may have also noticed a few other things about Hecate that I had mentioned before. Hecate is a goddess of crossroads, a goddess of the underworld, a goddess of witchcraft and magic, but also a goddess of mysteries. And these are very important because she is a goddess mostly as a guide. Thus, you may be able to notice her title as Hecate the Docus, also known as Hecate the Torchbearer. And as the Torchbearer, she is known as a guide for those who have recently deceased, a responsibility you may have also seen with the god Hermes. But, as a goddess who guides the dead, she is also responsible for leading them into the afterlife and the realm of Hades. And you may have also noticed this as a moon goddess. For the moon, basically, while in some ways it can be seen as a terrifying aspect because it represents the night because of the absence of the sun, and thus the day, in the reality the moon is also the light within the darkness. A light for those that are lost, which is also something that can be related to when it comes to Hermes. But there is a difference between Hecate and Hermes. Hecate is also a witchcraft goddess. She is a goddess of mages, a goddess of those who work within both the mortal and the astral realms. And thus her greatest art really is in divination, which is something that could be seen as an art of the living contacting the dead, as well as the spiritual realms of the divine as well. It is also an art that can lead you to understanding the future as well, and anything that is unknown. So this is where the aspects of her being a goddess of the unknown and being a goddess of secrets comes into play as well, for she reveals these secrets to her devotees and those who are searching for knowledge. And further onward, there is also the aspect of the goddess of the crossroads, where she leads the pathway, even when there is confusion of which path to take. She is the goddess that will lead you onto the path that best fits you, that best fits your personality, what it is that you desire, and how you feel you should live in life, as well as for the futures that are laid out before you when it comes to divinations. To give a final aspect of her as a goddess, there is also something to keep in note when you make offerings, and that involves the final aspect that I mentioned briefly earlier, and that is the hound that is always at her side. You might be wondering about that part a little bit, and why I haven't really mentioned them. There are some tales about Hecate where there was a queen on Anatolia, of which city I currently do not know of, but a queen had tried to throw her off a cliff. But, in mercy, Hecate decided to instead transform this queen into one of her hounds, and thus she is always constantly represented with the hound, because this is an aspect that is shown to be a part of her mercy, as well as an aspect to show that she is a guide to those who are lost. There is one final tale that is about her, though it is not necessarily a mythological tale, but rather more of a tale that shows how her offerings are to be accepted. She is very caring of her hounds and those that guide the lost. So, whenever you make an offering, it is normally going to be a plate of food, generally of meat, and when you make this offering, always leave it at a crossroad or a road of any kind that you find fitting. And when you do this, be sure to lay the plate out, and if you happen to see a hound or a dog, do not chase them away, for it is that hound or dog that will accept the offering. Chase the hound or dog away, and your prayers will not be answered. Or perhaps Hecate might find a different way to treat you as you have treated her good boys or girls. And always be careful of how you decide to treat them. Always treat them well, because Hecate cares dearly for the hounds that lead those who are lost. And so thus ends my tale of being able to give an idea of Hecate, or Hecate, if you so prefer. And I hope this was able to help you learn a little bit more about my main mother goddess. And there will be more to come later about the gods that I honor, and later on gods that will be of other pantheons that you might find more of a click with. How I was able to relate with the goddess was basically, she was one of the first gods that I made contact with. She was the goddess that helped me in guiding my connection to the astral realm, and a goddess I always look to whenever I make arts of divination and honing my magical craft. And of course, in any moon magic, which is one of my more common aspects. Divination is something I work well within as well, as I probably mentioned earlier, especially when I use the Elder Futhark runes. And so, in many ways, she is very helpful to me, not just in honing my magical craft in different aspects, but also in a way of being able to help take care of myself, and to be able to help in my mental, emotional, and physical states. Because after all, once again, she is a mother goddess, as well as a moon and magic and witch goddess. She is many things, but in many aspects, she is a goddess that wishes to help hone your craft, and a goddess that wishes to help you in your health and your state of mind. So always be sure to keep in mind both aspects of Hecate, that she is both nurturing and caring, but also firm when needed. And for that, I wish to end this video here, and I hope you've been able to learn something about Hecate, and maybe a little bit about what it's like to have a relationship with gods and goddesses. The important thing is to know which ones will be clicking with you, and that of course it is a two-way street. They're the ones that are guiding you, but you must also understand that they are helping you, and that you are learning from them as a student. You show respect, but they show respect to you as a person as well, and from that you will be able to find the greatest growth when it comes to gods that you find a relationship with. With that, I will end the video, and I hope you all learned something and enjoyed this video, and until next time, so mote it be, and blessings be.